Welcome to HipMojo, show 16. I'm your host, Ashkan Karbas-Frushan.
And I'm CT Moore.
Welcome to the show. So last week when we were talking about Craigslist came up, I forgot what we were talking about, but Craigslist came up, and we said that this week we would touch on Craigslist to see how responsible Craig Newmark is for the decline of newspapers.
Right.
So we're going to talk about that. Basically, was it Craigslist or was it technology that impacted newspapers? And then we're also going to have a tangent to say who missed out the boat most on technology. Is it the newspaper industry, newspaper and magazines, so the print industry, or the music industry? In segment 2, we're going to also touch on something that we're going to expand on something that we touched on last week, which is why VCs don't invest in content, which is a very popular theme and motif on the show. And then lightning round and email of the week. Let's get right to it.
Okay.
So, how responsible is Craigslist for the demise of newspapers?
I don't know. I don't think they're primarily responsible. If anything, newspapers were disrupted, I think, by technology, and they were disrupted on two sides. They were disrupted on the content side, which ate away at the demand for their product, and they were disrupted on the ad model side. So yeah, Craigslist did take a huge chunk of classifieds advertising from them without even charging for it. But it wasn't Craigslist that did that. Craigslist, there's no technology behind it. Really, the internet came up. That was bound to happen. Craigslist happened to be the company that did it, the one that was first past the post. I think what's really killed newspapers, though, is the content market has become completely saturated. Barriers to entry or publishing or whatever are completely low, and they're facing too much competition, which has spread advertising dollars really thin.
Yeah, so basically, whether it was Craigslist or not, that site did take a $100 billion classifieds industry and turn it into like a $100 million industry. So obviously, what do we always say? The internet shrinks industries. Craigslist came out and they basically shrunk the classifieds industry. Okay, you touched on a lot of great points. When we started WatchMojo, one of the main sort of objections to the site was why produce content? Why produce professionally produced premium content for the web? And I said, listen, user-generated content, particularly citizen journalism, is going to have a big impact on the news industry. And we've seen it in Egypt, in Tunisia, in any other crazy parts of the world, or when there's an earthquake, people are tweeting about it before the news, CNN updates it. So you're right, that basically, I think citizen journalism really, I think, had a big impact. Look at CNN. CNN is growing and it has ambitions to take over the world, yet they're laying off some journalists. Why? Because of iReport. And as much as iReport was like a dinky little idea at first, where you're like, what the hell is this? There is some good stuff coming out. And I think citizen journalism and the news industry is one segment where UGC is very powerful and does eat away at it. Now, let me ask you this. What industry missed the boat most on technology? Is it the news, so that's the newspapers as well as the lifestyle entertainment magazine?
The print.
Let's say just put print all together. Because you could sort of branch off, news from magazines, but let's just put all print together. So who missed out more, print or music?
I'm probably going to have to say print, if only because a lot more publishing companies have gone belly up than music companies. Music companies have been losing money, but they're still there. And I think part of the reason is the difference in the kind of product they sell. You buy an album, you're going to go back and listen to it over and over and over there. You buy today's edition of the newspaper, you're not going to look at it after 2 days.
It's very interesting. I disagree with you. I think that the print, sort of the articles and texts, and think of think of all the images that these companies have. That is very valuable to move online, without a doubt. But I think the music industry missed the boat more, and I'll explain. News is fundamentally a commodity. We agree? I mean, news is a commodity. So I think if you were to take that commodity and then put it on the internet, there would be, and let's say whether you said it's going to be an ad-supported model or it's a subscription-based, I think there is way too much similar quality content out there that users will not pay for the subscription. And in the ad model, we've seen what's happened with the explosion of UGC with video is there's so much supply that ad rates go down. So I think the newspaper industry was just, it was the first sort of industry out there. It was a print industry. It's been around for 150 years, more if you go back to, depending on what you call news, right, frankly. But let's say the news of the Hearsts, and like that era, it's been around for 150 years. It was bound to be disrupted. It was like a tree. It was too fat. It got too many layers, too many inefficiencies, and the internet was going to disrupt that. I think the reason why the music industry missed the boat more is because the music industry does not have a commodity. It's actually unique. You're right that you buy an album, you listen to it 50 times, but those are unique assets, right? People would pay. Look at what Steve Jobs discovered, that people would pay for music. They would pay for super premium content. So I think they missed out they missed out more. Now, let me give you just a little anecdote. In 2000, 2001, when I started my career, I was a resident interviewer in a previous lifetime, and I remember interviewing 3 Doors Down. Remember Kryptonite, 3 Doors Down?
Right.
Okay. So at the zenith of Napster's destruction of the music industry, so around 2000, 2001, guess what was the most downloaded song of the year, illegally?
Kryptonite?
Bingo, jackpot, you win. Nothing, no, I'm kidding. It was Kryptonite. Guess what was the highest selling album that year?
That same album?
That same album, right? So, I mean, is it an anecdote? Is it does you know, causation cause whatever? I don't know.
But it's causation right there. You know, here you have an album that's in high demand.
I was up all night researching this fight. I'm kidding, but okay, sorry.
Well, no, in that case, you had an album that's in high demand. So and at the height of Napster was just the beginning of music disruption, really, if you think about it. So the only reason why
do we take a shot of Bailey's every time we use the word disruption on today's show?
Do you have a bottle of Bailey's?
We should. Okay. It's getting close to Christmas. Okay, sorry.
All right. Anyways, so you know this music piracy was really just getting started. It's changed a lot since then, but it was a popular song. So of course it's going to be both the most downloaded and the most purchased songs. And I'm sure you can see the same trend.
But okay, with all due respect, not necessarily. It could be the most downloaded song, but then why would the argument against the album? The argument that a lot of like the sort of Web 2, you know, hippies we say is, oh, it's the music industry, they're a bunch of dumb rocks. They put out these albums that nobody wants. They really just want 1 or 2 songs. Well, if that's the case, you wanted Kryptonite and I don't know, like Sulfur or whatever the other song was. But the fact that people still went out and bought the album, I just think speaks to the fact that, agree or disagree about causation, correlation, I'm just saying that the music industry really missed out the boat. And I think part of it goes back to what Doug Morris, currently CEO, chairman of Sony, but probably before CEO and chairman of Universal, he's like, this is not our expertise, digital music. It's like, you know, bringing a dog to us and saying, operate, you know, give it a triple bypass surgery. It's not our expertise. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, well, then why were you not hiring the people that understood digital music? Because that, I think, is the one area that, in hindsight, they could have had a great ad model and they could have had a great subscription model. And the fact that right now you got the Pandoras and the Spotifys and the Crapsters that are eating away and creating that value, it should have been the record labels. So just another lesson to be served that if media companies, the TMCs, the traditional media companies, are in this position where they're sort of caught between a rock and a hard place, it's because they're both greedy and stupid. And I'm not saying that to be rude. I'm saying that to tell them, wake up, you got a big opportunity, stop being so defensive, stop being so, you know, backwards. Anyway. Anything else before we move to the next segment?
I still disagree, but let's move on to the next segment.
Let's move on. We'll be right back. Why don't VCs invest in content?